So recently there's been, we're talking about municipalities and them, various municipalities exerting, or rather the desire to exert more control over the grid. What do you think of the tariff increases that are over and above NERSA's recommendation increases by the city of Cape Town?
Well, I think it's completely unacceptable.
What can we do about it, though?
Well, I think the citizens of Cape Town should protest, and we should, show our dissatisfaction. It's bad enough that we have all these terrible increases, inflation, the effects of, global politics driving up food prices, electricity prices, and so on. And then on top of that, you get, people who whack us twice as hard as they're actually supposed to. So in my view, it's very distasteful, but, not to be unexpected.
Why is it best practice, or rather universal practice, for municipalities to slap on an additional tariff increase on top of the increases that from Eskom?
Well, it's not practice to slap on additional increases. The way the electricity works is Eskom supplies some customers directly, and then it supplies some municipalities to supply customers. So obviously they are able to put on a charge for doing that because they maintain the wires, the infrastructure and everything. So it's not so much that they control the grid, it's much more the local distribution. So municipalities traditionally have generated revenue from this, which they wouldn't have otherwise. So I think that's a good model. And in fact, I think Eskom shouldn't be supplying anybody directly. It should all be done through local authorities, because that helps us to build strong local governments who've got financially, sound. But when the tariff is set, that should be the tariff. You shouldn't be allowed to go and add on a whack on top of that. Then what's the point of having the tariff?
So you're saying that whatever the increase in prices is from
NERSA,
Eskom, from NERSA,
yeah.
Municipalities should stick to that.
Yeah, and I think that should be regulated. You should say, if NERSA says the tariff is R1.50, and then the municipality is allowed to, for example, charge 15 cents on top of that, 10%. That should be regulated, and there should be no exceptions to that.
An article came out on the 21st of June, just a month ago, and I think it's gone largely unnoticed by the ANC and all opposition parties and the public in general. Cape Town secures $2 billion for water, public transport and electricity projects. This is from News 24. It says that the city of Cape Town has secured 100 million euros, that equates to 2 billion rand, in development finance for infrastructure projects. This is a development loan provided by France's Development Bank. It says that the bulk of the funding will be directed to water and sanitation, followed by public transport initiatives called urban mobility, that's 24% of it, and access to electricity, 17% of it. So if the city of Cape Town is securing these loans, why then do they slap on an increase to the electricity rates over and above what the NERSA increase is?
Well, by the way, I forgot to say, when I was commenting as the chairman of ROSCOE, I'm the chairman of ROSCOE. Now I'm commenting as PHILLIP DEXTER. So
yes.
There's nothing
okay.
It's very important that the listeners and the viewers should understand. I'm not here just as the chairman of ROSCOE. You happen to have asked me questions in that capacity.
Yes.
So I think, first of all, the principle of taking loans to build infrastructure is not a wrong one. I think there's not enough of that happening, and that's the reason we have the problems we do. Because if we don't have the resources available locally, then we should be able to get loans. But I'm not sure that we don't have enough resources locally. I think we probably have more than enough resources to fund all the infrastructure that we need. It's just that the way financial institutions work in this country, they don't want to put it into infrastructure because the return is too low for them. They'd much rather put it into micro lending and stuff like that, so that they can charge working class people 50% interest rather than getting 10% back for building water pipes. So let's assume you have to go and get a loan from an international institution. Nothing wrong with that. But My question is, how did you get the loan? How did you select this institution that you're lending money from? And what is the rate that you're charging on the loan? Because in the article I read, it makes no mention of what the rate is. It just says it's a better rate. Well, better than what?
Yeah.
You know, better than lending from a micro lender? I don't know. You know, is it better than 50%? So that's the issue for me, because as long as that money is going into building infrastructure and it's doing good for people, that's great. But was that the best deal we could get? You know, for me, it's like the BMW story. Do the police really need BMWs? I mean, honestly speaking. And then on top of that, we need to buy them and have them just sit in a car park somewhere? You know, that's not value for money. And like I'm saying, you don't see that story in the Daily Maverick.
No, for sure. You wouldn't. You need to go to Facebook and Insta, and you need to go to TikTok to find those stories.
Yeah.
And
Or you can listen to the ROSCOE Palm Show.
You can listen to the ROSCOE Palm Show on Cape Conscious Media, also on AfriCup. Shout out to Sebastian Peterson. Big shout out to Sebastian Peterson, the screen actor. Now back to this the 2 billion rand loan. My information is that there was no public participation process around it. All financial statements released to view the repayments, unless this was presented as a line item when they tabled the budget. But then when they tabled the budget, I mean, the state of the opposition in the city of Cape Town is so dire that this thing would have gone over their heads and far away. So why don't we have an effective opposition that reads the briefing packs?
Well, I think you're right about that, number one, about the opposition. But two, if they didn't follow a process, open and transparent public process, you have to ask yourself why. I think taking a loan of that magnitude is a matter for all of the ratepayers and taxpayers in the city of Cape Town, which includes you and me. So I'm like you, I want some more information. So I would hope that one of the councillors in the city of Cape Town would ask that question, because by rights they should have access to all that documentation. There should be recordings. First of all, there should be where this advert was placed to get the RFP, all the people who submitted proposals, how they were evaluated, and finally what the terms and conditions of the loan are. And none of that is there in the article.
Well, maybe one of the councillors from any of the opposition parties, or in fact the governing party in the city of Cape Town and the province, can enlighten us about that. I think it's a failure of oversight, a complete failure of oversight.